It happened on a bright, ordinary afternoon that turned into the kind of day one never forgets. The scent of sizzling food, the clinking of cutlery, and the hum of quiet conversations filled the Elmwood Grill, a small roadside restaurant tucked between two old oak trees. For Ethan Cole, a single father with tired eyes and calloused hands, it was just another lunch break between construction shifts. He sat with his 7-year-old daughter, Aria, sharing a plate of fries and a laugh about her crooked school drawing. But moments later, the air changed. A woman at a nearby table gasped, clutched her throat, and began to choke. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity that still shines through hardship, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every act of engagement helps stories like this reach more hearts and remind the world that good people still exist. Ethan didn't think twice. He rushed from his seat, instinct taking over. The woman's friends screamed for help, frozen in panic, but Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind and performed the Heimlich maneuver with steady force. Within seconds, a piece of food dislodged, and she gasped for air, collapsing into his arms, trembling but alive. Applause rippled through the restaurant, but Ethan only nodded, checked she was breathing properly, and returned quietly to Aria, who stared at him wide-eyed with pride. The woman, still shaken, tried to thank him, but he simply smiled. "I'm just glad you okay," before leaving soon after his lunch forgotten, but his heart strangely full. He didn't know her name, didn't know she'd come back into his life, didn't know this simple act would change everything. For Ethan, life had always been a series of uphill climbs. Since losing his wife in a car accident 3 years earlier, every day had been a balancing act between grief, survival, and fatherhood. He worked double shifts repairing old buildings, often skipping meals to make sure Aria's lunchbox never went empty. They lived in a small, worn-out house at the end of Pinecrest Lane, where the roof leaked when it rained and the heater coughed in winter. Still, Aria's laughter made every hardship worth it. She was his sunshine, the reason he kept going. 3 days after that incident, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly rolled down Pinecrest Lane, its polished surface gleaming beneath the midday sun. It looked so out of place among the cracked sidewalks and faded houses that neighbors peeked out through curtains, whispering. The car stopped in front of Ethan's small home. The door opened, and a man in a perfectly tailored suit stepped out, tall, composed, and radiating quiet authority. He wore dark sunglasses and carried himself like someone used to commanding boardrooms, not dirt roads. He walked up the cracked pathway and knocked. Ethan opened the door, confused and cautious. "Can I help you?" he asked, wiping dust from his hands. The man removed his glasses, his voice deep and measured. "Mr. Cole, my name is Graham Hensley. I work for Miss Eleanor Vale." Ethan frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, who?" Graham smiled faintly. "The woman you saved at the Elmwood Grill." The memory flickered in Ethan's mind. The elegant woman in her 40s, silk blouse, pearl earrings, the one he'd helped that day. He hadn't seen her leave, nor expected anything after that. "Is she all right?" he asked. "She is," Graham replied. "In fact, she sent me to find you." Ethan's confusion deepened. The driver handed him a thick white envelope sealed with a gold crest. Inside was a handwritten note in graceful cursive. "Dear Mr. Cole, you saved my life that afternoon without hesitation, and I realized later how deeply that moment affected me. I owe you more than words can express. I'd like to meet you again, properly this time. Please allow my driver to bring you and your daughter to my home this evening. Dinner is on me, and gratitude is long overdue. Warmly, Eleanor Vale." Ethan looked up, uncertain. "That's kind, but I don't think I can." Graham raised a hand. Miss Vale insisted. "She would be deeply disappointed if you refused." That evening, Ethan dressed in his cleanest shirt and helped Aria into her yellow sundress. She twirled in front of the mirror, giggling. "Daddy, do you think the lady we're meeting is a princess?" Ethan smiled softly. "Something like that, sweetheart." When they arrived at Eleanor Vale's mansion on Crestwood Hill, Ethan's breath caught. The gates alone were taller than his house. Inside, manicured gardens stretched endlessly, and the marble steps shimmered beneath golden sunset light. Eleanor herself greeted them at the door, graceful, poised, yet warm. She was dressed simply in a soft cream sweater and linen trousers, her eyes kind but observant. "Mr. Cole," she said, smiling gently, "and this must be your daughter. Welcome to my home." The dinner was elegant but intimate. Eleanor spoke little about herself, more curious about them instead. She asked Arya about school and laughed softly when the girl said she wanted to be a building fixer like her dad. Ethan, though nervous at first, relaxed under Eleanor's calm energy. Her home radiated peace paintings of oceans, vases of fresh lilies, soft music echoing through wide halls. Later that evening, as Arya chased butterflies in the garden, Eleanor and Ethan sat by the fountain. "You didn't have to do all this," he said quietly. "I wanted to," she replied. "You saved me when no one else moved." That kind of courage deserves to be recognized. Ethan shrugged humbly. Anyone would have done the same. Eleanor's gaze softened. "No, Mr. Cole." They wouldn't have. As they spoke, she learned more about his struggles, how he lost his wife, the medical bills that drained his savings, how he worked 3 jobs to keep his daughter fed. Ethan wasn't complaining. He spoke simply, without self-pity, and that more than anything moved Eleanor deeply. After they left that night, Ethan assumed it was the end of their encounter. But the next morning, he found another envelope at his door. Inside was a letter and a check. The letter read, "For your bravery, I wanted to offer something meaningful. This isn't charity, it's opportunity. The Vale Foundation restores historic buildings. I'd like you to lead our next project. Full pay, full benefits. You've earned more than survival. Mr. Cole, you've earned a chance to live." Ethan's hands trembled. The check wasn't enormous, but the job offer felt like hope, real, solid hope for the first time in years. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan began work at the Vale Foundation. The position wasn't just a job, it was a calling. He was restoring old homes, breathing life into forgotten places, just as Eleanor had breathed life back into his future. Arya, too, flourished, her laughter louder, her drawings brighter. Sometimes they'd visit Eleanor's estate for tea, and she'd tell Arya stories about her own childhood, of loss and rebuilding, of how wealth means nothing if it doesn't serve kindness. One afternoon, Ethan found Eleanor sitting by her garden fountain again, staring at the rippling water. Her face looked weary and her hands shook faintly. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She smiled weakly. "I'm fine, just tired." But a few days later, Graham came to Ethan with somber eyes. "Miss Vale has been diagnosed with late-stage heart failure," he said quietly. "She refused treatment for months. She didn't want pity." The news hit Ethan harder than he expected. This woman who had lifted him from despair was now slipping away. He visited her that evening, sitting by her bedside as she smiled faintly. "You know," she whispered, "the day you saved me, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was saying goodbye in my own way. I'd given up. You didn't just save my life. You reminded me it still had meaning." Ethan's eyes welled up. "You gave me that too," he said. "You gave me back my life." She reached for his hand, her voice barely audible. "Promise me, Ethan, keep building. Not just houses, but hope. People like you make this world gentle again." Eleanor Vale passed away quietly 3 weeks later, leaving behind not only her vast estate, but a foundation renamed in honor of her final wish, the Cole and Vale Foundation for Second Chances. She had left Ethan as its managing director, ensuring his life and Arya's would be secure. Months later, Ethan stood outside one of the restored homes, a small community shelter bearing Eleanor's name. Arya ran up beside him, holding a bouquet of daisies. "Daddy," she said brightly, "Miss Ellie would love this, right?" He smiled, looking up at the clear sky. "She already does, sweetheart." As the sun dipped low, painting the sky hues of gold and violet, Ethan felt peace for the first time in years. Life had taken from him once, but kindness, unexpected, uncalculated kindness, had given back far more. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because sometimes one good deed can change not just a life, but a legacy. Special request: before you scroll, comment below with one line: "Kindness still exists." Let's fill the comments with hope today.